Welcome back for another episode of Dine and Dish. And we are so excited to kick off another week with amazing information. And I have to tell you, I say this every week. I'm really excited for my show. I have a great guest. We love her last name because we're going to Italy next week to visit Gennara's family right outside Naples. But with further ado, Anne Napolitano, welcome to Dine and Dish. And we're excited to jump into the show today.
Hi, it's very nice to be on the show. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So we were just talking a little bit about Italy. We're actually going home. I say home. It's my husband's home, not my home. Just like you, I married into the Italian family. I'm not Italian either. But we're going to be outside of Naples in a small little town, Monte de Procida. And I'll tell you what, I thought we were going to get away from the heat for a little bit, but it's been like crazy, crazy heat over there.
I'm sure, but it's been crazy heat here too, right? So
I can't get a break. I'm leaving 110 here to go to 110 there. Where are you in this part of the world? Are you East Coast?
I am on Long Island in New York.
Gotcha. Okay. Annapolis, Maryland. So let's jump right into the show because I know we're going to run out of time, and you have such a cool background from being a chef turned into an accountant. So you're going from my husband's world into my world, which is so kind of cool. I'm getting one person with like the blend of two experiences. So I'm super excited to find out about your background as a chef and why you chose to get into the accounting world.
Well, actually, I started in the accounting world, had a passion for cooking, always loved it, left the accounting world for a while my kids were small, and started my own business as a personal chef and started cooking for people and working with restaurants. And then went back to the accounting world in 2016, started my own accounting firm. And as we were working through with different clients, got a couple of restaurant clients and really enjoyed working with them. We found that they have unique needs, and not a lot of accountants like to work with restaurants because they are different.
Yeah.
And they have different rules, and they don't always follow the rules. And so we
And don't
started
we
to
know that?
right? So we started to work with them, and we really understood what they need, and we were able to help them. And so then we decided that we should, have a niche. And so we work primarily now with restaurants, bars, breweries, distilleries, and wineries. And I
Very
love it.
cool.
I love it.
I'm sure it probably has some nice perks too with wine and food and being a chef. You know what? That's got to be interesting because now you're working with different restaurants and groups, but you also have the foodie background. So I'm sure you're also a little critic too. So you look at the business side in the books, and then you also look at, let's look at the recipe and the menu as well.
We can help them in a variety of different ways by doing things like that, looking at the menu. We help them with things like menu costing and how to work on the recipes to make them, work well for the client, for the restaurant with food costs. I mean, that's a huge portion of the business, isn't it? So we help them. And a lot of our clients say that they work with us because of our experience like that. The fact that we do understand what it's like to be in a kitchen, and we do understand what it's like to go through cash flow troubles and all of the difficulties that restaurants experience.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because having the chef background, the food background, understanding the kitchen, and then of course being the accounting, knowing the numbers. I say it all the time. Numbers are the end result of behaviors. So looking at numbers, knowing what behavior to address and look at, what do you think the biggest struggle is? Why restaurateurs don't learn their numbers? I mean, I know when I came from the accounting world, so I have a similar background to you. I worked in it for years. I did accounting resource services. So I know how the background works. And even coming into the restaurant industry, when I married into it, my husband's been in the restaurant industry for 30 plus years, you know, getting in and really understanding those numbers and looking at spreadsheets and looking at POS reports. I mean, there's so many restaurateurs that really don't focus on that, and I guess even from your perspective, I'm sure that's probably an initial struggle just to get them to look at the books, right?
It definitely is. And we try really hard to work with them on that part of it. But I guess it's just a different type of person, right? Mindset wise on what they understand. right? Generally, I find a lot of restaurateurs are creative types, right? And so maybe that's not the same background that you have in accounting. I like to say that I'm a little bit more of a creative type and I'm more of a big pictures person than I am the nuts and bolts and details of it. But I have a fantastic team that are great at the nuts and bolts and the details. But what we've tried to do with restaurant clients and all of our clients now is we show them a lot of charts and graphs. And we have found that by doing that, it really helps them understand the numbers better than just showing them a profit and loss statement and a balance sheet, which people generally don't understand. And I completely get that part of it. So by showing them the pictures, right, they can understand it. The other part that we found also was that a lot of our clients, they wouldn't ask questions because I think they didn't want us to realize that they didn't understand. And so the best way for us to do it was to translate for them, show them their profit with a chart, show them their cost of goods so that they could see exactly how much it is in comparison to their profit, their gross profit. Talk to them, walk them through their expenses of things like payroll, rent, and food costs, right? Which are the big drivers for all of them. And really stressing how cash flow is the most important thing.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk cash flow in just a minute because that's a big one. But I agree with you. You know, the creative statement that you made, it's so true. I think creative, artsy people, it's a different side of their brain. So it's hard to take numbers, sales, profitability, business, and then put that creative piece. It's almost like it's hard. It's almost like when you walk into a room when you're designing a restaurant, you know, designers see things like I see it, things flash in front of you and you can kind of visualize. Some people just are not that type of visual person. They need something, like you said, a pie chart or a report to kind of take those numbers and those overwhelming reports and put it into real life visuals, right? So I agree with 100%. So you mentioned something really important about cash flow. And that's a big one because a lot of restaurateurs look at profitability different, right? So they look at, okay, well, what's profitability? What's cash flow? So let's jump into that and talk about profit versus cash flow, because that's a big one, right?
Absolutely. Many of them don't understand the difference between the two and activity that flows through the balance sheet versus what goes through the profit and loss. We have clients that, you know, they run their business based on their bank balance, and that's not a great way to do it either. But it's also the P&L, the profit and loss doesn't tell the whole story. So you really need to have a cash flow statement that you can understand and see. And we even recommend looking at cash flow weekly because it is so critical to restaurants and it can get out of hand so quickly.
Yeah. So when you talk about profitability, what let's define what is true profitability because you know, I actually interviewed a restaurateur on the show a couple weeks ago and he was so funny. He said, you know, before I built my empire, my group, he said, look, if I had more money in the bank than I had on Monday, then I was good, right? Or I've heard other people say, well, if there's checks in the book, there's money in the bank, right? So let's talk what really is profitability and then what truly is cash flow.
Profitability is what's left on the at the bottom of the profit and loss statement at the end of the day, right? And we always want to see that profitable as a positive number. And that is a good thing. It is a very good thing to see it profitable. But the difference is that, say, for example, a restaurant has a loan and they're making payments on the loan. Those loan principal payments are not going to show up on the profit and loss statement. And so that money is coming out of their bank account, but you're not seeing it on the profit and loss statement. And that really, you know, shows a difference, right? There is an issue because then they say, well, I'm profitable, but I don't have any money in the bank. And there are other things as well, but a lot of it has to do with loans, really. If they're paying off loans or purchasing fixed assets, doing leasehold improvements to the restaurant, right? Sprucing up the place, buying equipment, any of those types of things are not reflected on their profit and loss statement. And so you're not capturing the whole picture by just looking at that. In order to really be well-rounded, I think, and to understand everything, it's best to look at the three together: a profit and loss statement, a balance sheet, and a cash flow. And again, I understand that it's not always easy to understand those things. But by using those charts and graphs, we can really get that picture across and have them understand things. And also some words like analytical, words that go through the profit and loss and the financial statements that we can share with our clients so that they can really understand it. We meet with our clients once a month at a minimum for these types of conversations so that we can really help translate the numbers for them.
Yeah. So do restaurants really run? I mean, obviously you do QuickBooks or whatever type of accounting process program you use to keep track of your profitability and your P&Ls, but do you really run a business on P&Ls? I mean, I know most restaurants really don't even look at them. They'll look at them at the end of the year, they'll look at them quarterly just to say, okay, hey, I have to do this for an audit if they're a franchisor, or I have to do it because my accountant makes me do it, right? But what numbers, when we're talking about true profit versus cash flow, what reports, what should a restaurateur or any business that is, what reports should they be using to really focus on their balance and focus on projections and forecasting to really have more money in the bank? Like at the end of the day, that's what we want, right? We all want more money in the bank. So what should we really look at? What suggestions do you have so you find these like hidden drains or, issues with cash flow?
We try to do forecasts and budgets based on their profit and loss statement. The best statement for them to look at on a regular basis is a cash flow statement. I really think that that explains the picture much better than just looking at the profit and loss. But then doing budgets and forecasts really help clarify things for our clients. And we do that for them. And I really think it's critical to have a partner, an accounting partner that's with you throughout the year. We don't do taxes, or we work with accountants that complete the taxes for our clients. But we're with them every step of the way through the year so that we can help them with those types of things. For example, one thing that we recommend to our clients is just something as basic as setting up a second bank account. And we use that to set aside money for sales tax. And we have them put that money in there once a week so that at the end of the month and at the end of the quarter, the money is already there for them to pay sales tax. We've had so many clients run into problems where they use that money, and then when it comes time to make the sales tax payment, they don't have the funds. So that's just a little tip that we do, that we've learned over the years, just watching our clients struggle at times. And by doing that, we have them move whatever their sales tax percentage is on Mondays after a good weekend so that the funds are there, so that they don't even see it anymore. And we find that so much better for them to make sure that they're up to date on their sales tax.
Yeah, what a great idea. That little tips like that. I mean, especially for restaurants. I mean, the margins today are not like they used to be. I mean, back in the day, pizza shops, Italian, I mean, like there was more cash, there was more profits. I mean, now food costs is going up. You have credit card fees, operating costs. I mean, when you look at a good, healthy business, I mean, an operating cost in general should be 8 to 10% of your total sales. That doesn't happen anymore, because you only have two things you can control. You can control payroll and you control food cost. If food cost is going up and payroll is going up and your hard costs are going up, it doesn't really matter what your operating costs are because those stay the same. They're static, right? So you can only charge so much. And, when you're looking at, and we're going to jump into this right now, you pick your brain in terms of like your chef background, because we're going to talk about manipulating menus, right? Because you can't just change your menu and change your pricing on a weekly basis when operating cost goes up. So it's like, okay, costs are going up, costs are going up, costs are going up, menus are staying the same, right? So it's like, what do you do then?
Exactly. You really need to track those food costs. And like you said, in this dynamic, right, in this economic uh, place right now, food costs keep rising. And so they really need to be watched. And we do track that with some of our clients on the higher end, where we scan their invoices so that we can see what the food cost is, so that we can alert them if the price of chicken breast went up from this week, from last week. So we'll track those items, and also to bring it to the forefront that they need to understand that it's not just those food costs that they need to cover with their menu pricing, right? A lot of them think, okay, if I pay $5 a pound for chicken breasts, right, and I make sure that I cover that cost in my menu pricing, that I'm good. But like you said, you have to take into consideration rent and overhead costs, right, and your payroll and insurance, right? Insurance is a huge one as well, that the costs keep going up, right? So you need somebody to help you watch all of those things. And as a business owner, a restaurateur, you're working so many hours a week as it is, it's impossible for you to keep track of all of these things. And so you really need that second set of eyes helping you along the way.
Yeah, I agree. Because, and then you rely on your chef too, because then you look at your chef and saying, okay, are you keeping track of your food costs? Are you keeping track of inventory? What's coming in? What's going out? What's the waste? So there's so many different things you look at from the back of the house, but there's also more unique qualities that you can look at from the front of the house as well. So what I love with your background is you see that, and you don't see a lot of accounting firms, even consultants that work in the accounting industry, that have restaurant background. You really don't anymore. A lot of the accountants, I mean, even the accountants we work with, yes, they work with a lot of restaurants, but they have never worked in the restaurant to understand, okay, well, if you are losing money, how do you find that solution? Is that something you do as well, or you're more focused on, P&Ls and cash flow? I mean, do you also go in and say, hey, you're leaving revenue on the table? What happens there?
Absolutely. We work with our clients just like that. We will talk to them about their whole practice, their whole business to try to really understand what they're going through and what's keeping them up at night and what are the problems that they're experiencing. And we can bring that expertise to it because we do understand how it works. So we start the conversation, how are things going? What are you looking to do? What are your goals? How are you going to get there? We'll help them with funding, right? Some of them, it's very hard for them to get loans, right? But we work with brokers, we work with banks, so we can help get them lines of credit if that's something that they need to get through, especially on the short term. But we also work with them to make sure that their books are correct so that when it comes time for them to either sell or to get lending through a bank or a broker, that their books are in great shape so that they can get that, they have access to that funding. Because we've seen that too many times as well, right? Where they don't keep accurate books and then it comes time for them to sell or get loans and they can't. And we also suggest that they get the loans if they need a loan or they think they might need a loan. Get the loan when things are going well. And then you always have that line of credit or that loan that you can tap into if you run into trouble, right? Or have some down months, some issues. We have a client up in the Boston area and they it's a dog bar basically, right? So you can bring your dog to the bar. And in one particular month, there was a dog virus that was going around. And so the visits dropped way down, right? And for that month, it was terrible. They were so uncertain. They didn't know how it was going to turn out. Things turned around, right? And things went well. But, that's unexpected. Same thing like with COVID, right? Nobody could have seen that coming, right? But to have funding and we helped our clients get PPP money and economic injury loans, all of those things. So we try to truly partner with our clients like that.
So, what happens when you're going through this process? You go in, we'll talk through your steps. You go in, you interview the client, you look at the restaurant, and, you figure out, okay, this is where they have shortfalls or they have deficiencies, and you work with them to fix that. But what happens if it's truly sales? It might be marketing. Maybe it's not the books. Maybe it's not the cash flow because they say sales fixes everything, right? You get the sales up, fixes payroll, fixes food costs, it fixes cash flow. So what do you do at that level? I mean, when do you get to the point where you say, hey, maybe this is the wrong location, or hey, maybe this, the wrong manager? I mean, do you also look at those items and those areas as well to figure out, to identify where the shortfalls might be?
We will work with clients talking about staffing and locations, things like that, and improving sales marketing. We can connect them with marketing experts as well. We try to have a big portfolio of resources that we say that we can refer to them. Um, but I think the first step is making sure that those books are in good shape so that then you can see where the issues lie. Right? If your books aren't in great shape, you're not going to know that the problem is that your sales aren't high enough. You'll see the costs are too high, right? Maybe the rent is too high, but there's not much you can do, right, about rent except close and go to a new location, right? And that's a tough decision to make. But you definitely need to have good books so that then you can focus on what's important. And again, if you improve your sales, right, but if your food costs are too high, that's not going to help either, right? Because we're it's outpacing the sales. So we still got to get those margins under control. We got to look at payroll, make sure that they're not overstaffing, especially on slow days, right? Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays, even, right? You got to have the right amount of people on there working for the day. But we can talk, we work through all of those types of things.
Yeah. So, when you're going through this process and you're in the restaurants, what do you think the biggest financial mistakes that you're seeing in with operators, restaurant operators? Because I'm sure there's a couple top five that you see over and over and over again that you already know going into it. Like, okay, we got to hit these top five. What are those biggest financial issues?
Food costs, right? Staffing issues, payroll, rent, not pricing your menu appropriately to sustain the costs, uh, not being aware of your financials so that you can see right away where the problems are. A lot of them just fly blind because they do it based on their gut, especially if they've been in business for a long time, right? They think they've done it, they know how to do it, and they don't really look at their numbers, right? And look at their bank balance maybe to see. But not understanding the fact that if they buy equipment, that's going to impact their cash, but not impact the profit and loss statement.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that because the longer you're in business, it's almost like it's a double-edged sword, right? So the longer you're in business, which is great because you build a legacy, you build a name, everybody knows you. But the bad side of it is you've been in business a long time and you have a lot of bad habits, right? Because you get to the point where you're on autopilot. You just do what you've been doing and you keep doing, what you've done. And one of the sayings I always say is if you keep doing what you're doing and you get the same result as you always done, you're going to get the same result. So you almost have to learn new tricks, and learn new changes as the world changes. I mean, we talk every show two things, COVID and AI. It's like it changed the way everybody thinks. COVID changed everything. And now AI is like the new COVID because it's changing everything again. So it's like everything that we do is just evolving. And if you don't know how to take what you've done and what you've been doing and kind of make it relevant and what's going on today, it's hard to be successful and to continue. Like, for example, inventory. If you know that, and I use this as an example because some of our stores have done this for a while, so I'm guilty of it. But our guys look at the wall sometimes and they're like, "Oh, there should be 5 cases up there," and not like, "Oh, well, we sold X and we should have X." It's like, "No, we usually have 5 up there, so we need to order 2 more to make it 5." So they're just on such an autopilot because they've been doing it so long that they don't have the mentality of, "Okay, well, let's look at the numbers and look at the POS report and this is sold. This is what we used. This is what we need. This is what we order." It's more of, "Hey, we always have 5 up there. We just got to make sure we always have 5." You know what I mean?
We have a lot of clients that don't actually count their inventory. And that's a question that we ask when we first start working with them. And a lot of them will say, "Oh, that's a problem for us. It's definitely an issue." And they do need to do that because you want to look for theft, right? Employee theft. That's always one thing. Spoilage, right? Waste. I think you mentioned that before. If we're wasting too much product, that's a problem and that's a big issue. And if they're not on top of that, that will hurt them in the long run. And since, like you said, right, the margins are so thin, you can't afford to have that.
Well, and if you can't measure something, you really can't improve it. I mean, and that's with everything, whether it's training, reporting, everything needs some type of measure to see if it's successful. So I love that we're talking numbers because I'm such a numbers person. I always look at the numbers and I'm like, how do you fix it? How do you fix it if you don't know the numbers, right? So now you're working with a group, okay? Whether it's a single unit operator or a multi-unit operator, how do you know when it's time to scale? Because I'm sure you get that question asked to you many times, like, "Anne, help me. I have 1 location. I want to get to 5. How do I do that?" Or, "Anne, I'm at 10 and now I'm ready to go to 20." What are indicators, expansion readiness? What are some of the things that you look at that you would um, consult and give advice on?
I think 1 to 5 is tougher than 10 to 20 because by the time they're at 10 locations, they've already proven the concept and have processes in place. Going from a single location to even that second location is a big step. right? You really need to have your processes documented so that you can standardize things across both locations, 2 locations, 3 locations, right? 4, so that everything is done similarly. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, but it needs to be somewhat similar so that they can go from one location to another location. Start thinking about where are you purchasing your food from, your merchandise, your costs, right? All of the cogs. Where are you purchasing that from? When you go to a second location, can you get a discount now because you're purchasing more?
Rebates, you can go and start getting rebates and buying power, and start looking at a lot of these groups and start working on, these master agreements, master pricing agreements.
And having a good point of sale system is very important as well, and using it, not just having it, but using it to, like you said, to your point about looking at the reports and having the data there so that you can see what's selling and what's not selling, what's important, right? Which one should we focus on? If we have an expensive item on the menu that's not selling that well, maybe we shouldn't have it on the menu. Maybe we need to look at those types of things. But all of them to get ready to go to that next location is standardizing things and asking for the discounts. Same thing like insurance, right? And then maybe your new location as far as utilities or anything that you can ask for rebates, you do it. Super important, but it requires a lot of discipline. And not every owner is ready for that discipline.
Yeah. It's insurance is a big one. I have to tell you, that is it's almost like a used car salesperson. It's horrible to say, right? Where they ask you, what do you want to pay? That's what I feel like sometimes. It's like I get these invoices and I'm like, what the heck is this? And then I send it off and they're like, oh, we can do better. We'll shop it. Well, why didn't you do that before I got the invoice? It's like, what do you want to pay? I mean, insurance is crazy to me. I'll tell you the area, when we were in Florida, we had a full service restaurant in Florida. I have never seen insurance rates. I was so blown away. I mean, we were probably 5 miles from the ocean, okay, in Las Olas. It was raised up. I mean, when I tell you, you had to go up the street at least 5 stairs, and it was a raised Bank of America building. If that had any flooding, the entire city needed an ark because there was no way possible a restaurant would have flooded without the entire city being underwater. The flood insurance that I had to pay in that restaurant was disgusting. Like when I got the insurance bill, I was like, how am I paying $10,000 a month for insurance when I'm 5 flights up and I'm 5 miles from the water? Like, how does that happen? I mean, margins in restaurants are so small anyway that how is that legal? How can that even happen? You know what I mean? It's crazy.
Well, absolutely. We had a client out on the east end of Long Island. Their insurance company flew a drone over the building. They own the building. And so they flew a drone over the building and then told them that they would not continue the insurance until they replaced the roof. And they wanted them to spend, I think it was $15,000 to $20,000 to replace the roof on this building before they would continue the policy. It's
Wow.
crazy. It is
It
absolutely
is.
crazy. Mhm.
I can't imagine I mean, I know what goes on in my business and my restaurants. I can't imagine being a consultant and going into other business owners because the stuff you see must be, I'm sure you probably have many stories that you could probably share on this show.
We do.
Actually, that
We
might be a good way to end. Hey, Anne, what's your best story and what's your worst story?
Well, probably one of
Right?
the worst is that roof, right? That was probably one of them because that was such a shock for them. And being prepared for those types of unexpected expenses, right? Who could have even seen that one coming? I mean, the roof was not in bad shape according to them. They were not having any issues with it, right? But now all of a sudden they had to figure out how to get around this and either get a new policy from somebody else that wasn't going to check the roof or paying for it. Yeah, we have so many stories. But we also have, great success stories with people that we've been working with for so many years that we got them through COVID and we're getting them through things now. And I love it. So I really enjoy working with people, with the restaurant owners and bar owners, and seeing them succeed and thrive is just fantastic. It really makes me happy and I enjoy it every single day. And since so many accountants don't like to do this, that's how we became a specialist in it. And I really think we can bring so much to it. And AI has helped us as well, where we can use that to help analyze reports and help give them the information that they need. And it works out really well. So and just understanding where they are so that we can help support them.
Yeah. So, what do you think the biggest surprise is? So, you have your one store, you're now opening your second store, second location. And I guess I should ask you, do you focus more on full service and bars or fast casual? Like, what's your more target customer? Because they're very different, right? Focusing on a fast casual and like fast food type industry versus full service is very different.
We have a mix of full service and fast casuals and franchisees. And we also have a couple of franchisors that we work with as well. And yes, they are very different, but they do have a lot of similarities as far as things like labor costs, right? And food costs that we can help them with. Franchisees present different issues because of the reporting requirements of the franchisor, that we need to provide so many financials for them and by a certain date. We have one of them that's in the Midwest. I believe they have 17 units, and we have to report financials for them by the 11th of every month. It's a very tight deadline. And for them to have to do that themselves, it was impossible. They couldn't do it. And now we have them on a routine where we can get the financials done in time. Otherwise, they get fined. They're penalized if they don't submit the financials by the 11th. And that's a fast casual with 17 locations that we work with. But we have a mix with restaurant, bars, distilleries, breweries, wineries, and different, but similar enough so that we can help and we get to know them and find out some of the unique parts of each one. We have a few distilleries that we work with, and we were starting to work with another one, and we were able to tap into the existing ones to help find out how much liquor can be made in a still of certain sizes, so that we could project how much they could make based on the size of the still that they own, because we had two other distilleries that had similar still sizes. And so, I mean, that's very unique, right? Right. Great information that they couldn't expect to get from anybody else. And we weren't even sure we could do it at first, but we tapped into our network and saw how much and started asking questions. And then that became a big part for us so that we could see, all right, you should be able to produce this much liquor each year.
Wow, very cool. So, for those restaurateurs that are listening or other businesses that are on the line for the show, if they don't have an Anne doing their books and their their numbers, because we don't have an Anne, we have a Michelle, but they don't have an Anne. What do you think they should start with? Like, where should they start? They're pulling these reports. I mean, they might be listening and now they say, okay, well, I'm going to look at my cash flow. I'm going to look at my P&Ls. Where should they start? What should they start looking at? What are some actionable items and insights that you can provide for the beginners?
For the beginners, I would sit down with that checkbook each month, your bank statement, and take a look at what's coming out. Really understand what you're paying for. First thing is, it's basically spend management, right? We're spending money on X, Y, and Z. Do we need to spend that? Can we reduce our costs on things that are under our control? Looking at your payroll, looking at your food costs, understanding when you pay something with cash, with money, that where it's coming from, what is it impacting in your business? Those are all the first steps I would take. And then talk to an accountant. If you have somebody in your corner, enlist them to help you more than they are. And if they can't, maybe it's time to find a new partner that can really help you do that. But my first step would be take a look at what you're spending and see if there's any areas that you can cut. Exactly to your point before where you mentioned about insurance, ask your broker or find a different broker to reevaluate the policies, because maybe that's a one way. And insurance is very costly. So saving 10% on your insurance policy is a big deal.
Actually, you just sound like a commercial. What's the commercial? You can take 10% on your insurance policy. Sorry, that's the first thing that came to mind when you said that. All right, as I digress, back to the
That's
show.
okay. I like it.
So, what reports should they pull first? I mean, obviously, they might not be able to do a P&L because, I mean, you need an accountant to truly do a P&L or understand QuickBooks or some type of an
Mhm.
accounting platform. But what report should they pull first to start looking at, to start really diagnosing or looking at their business?
I would start with the bank statement. If you don't have a good system of pulling reports and using QuickBooks, if you don't feel like comfortable using QuickBooks, QuickBooks can be tricky to set up and tricky to manage if you really don't understand it. Uh, so sometimes we recommend that our clients get a little bit of accounting training. And sometimes it's us that shows them that in our monthly meetings where we explain terms to them so that they get it better. But I would really just start with that bank statement and see where the money is going and what's coming in. Then take a look at your point of sale system and really look at what's selling, what's not selling, and go from there. Find a professional that can help you get QuickBooks set up. Sometimes once you get it set up and you get it running, then you might be able to manage it yourself if you feel like you're qualified enough to do that. But getting started in the right direction is really critical. So many people come to us and their books are not in great shape. And it's either because they tried themselves and it was hard and it's difficult to maintain, especially when you're so busy, or they hired somebody that didn't really understand what they needed to do and didn't do a great job for them. And it's unfortunate we see that way too often.
Yeah. Well, the last thing we want to tell somebody to do is do QuickBooks when they don't know how to do QuickBooks, because that would be an accounting nightmare for you, Anne, at the end user, because you get the reports and you go, what the heck is this number? Yeah.
It's true, but accounting is like a different language. It really is. And it's hard to understand if you don't have that grasp of it. It's like asking somebody to go into a restaurant and understand that business if you don't have a background in it. It's complicated. It really is. Um, but I think it's important for food and beverage owners to not look at accounting as just an expense. Look at it as an investment and that use it to help you build the business, improve the business, and really understand what's going on. We've had quite a few of them where they think of it as an expense and they don't want to spend the money on it. So we even had one that told us that we made it look too easy. So they felt that they could do it themselves.
You made it look too easy. That's a good thing, because if it doesn't look easy for you, they better find somebody else because you should make it look, you know what? I'm going to tell you a quick story. So, we knew these people, and this is probably horrible to say, but we knew these people, and restaurateurs sometimes make the restaurant business look very easy. When you're a good restaurateur, you make the business look really easy, from pizza and running a restaurant and just in general operations. And everybody always wants to open a restaurant. It's like the dream of everybody to own their own restaurant. And they don't realize sometimes that not being involved with the right people, successful partners, like you said earlier, leads to successful outcomes. And if you think you can do it yourself because somebody else makes it look easy, that's probably not the business to get into. Right. So whether it's accounting, whether it's owning a restaurant, because doing it the wrong way could cost you a lot of money when you close a restaurant. So it's very important to know what goes into it, and don't look at restaurants that are successful and running amazing and have lines out the doors, because they're doing it because they have a secret sauce. What's in the secret sauce? Is it partners? Is what is it? And understand that before you just randomly jump into something that you don't have an expertise in, or hire someone like an Anne, or partner with a franchisor or a Michelle or whatever it is, to make sure you have tools. It's important. When you agree, because I see that so many times where people think they can do it themselves, and I don't know what they were thinking.
There's a part of me that always has wanted to open up a restaurant. I think about it all the time, but I
Stay
I
in
do
accounting.
I stay in accounting and
Be
I
the
work with
consultant.
restaurant owners and I help them and I get to be a part of their lives as well. And I live vicariously through them. And I love that part of it. But I get that itch sometimes too, where I think, oh, I should do that, but I'm not going to do it. But you're right. We have fantastic restaurants that we work with and they do make it look easy. You are right. But it's not. It's not.
All right. So I have to ask you, what do you think the future of restaurant financial world and management is? Because everything is always changing. And what you're seeing in the field with your current restaurants, what do you think 2030 looks like from just the industry and financial trends?
2030. I can't even figure out what 2027 is going to be, let alone
All right.
2030.
Give me your 1 year, 3 year, 5 year.
Food costs seem to have stabilized a little bit, which is a big help. I think that that's a positive at the moment. So we're not dealing with constantly raising prices as much as we were before. So that part of it seems to have stabilized. I really just think it's staying on top of your numbers, staying on top of that business, really managing all of the pieces. To your point, right, where you said about using those reports and having the information, tracking everything, it's so critical. Strong restaurants are going to survive. They always do. They manage to make it through, right? But a lot of restaurants don't. And it really takes great management and a team to help get you through it. It's not just the owner, right? It's the partners, it's the employees, it's your vendors, right? It's people who are helping you along the way, that you need everybody rowing in the same direction for it to work. And staying on top of all of those details is so, so critical.
Yeah. Well, as we get to our 40-minute mark, our show's coming to an end. Every week I say it, it's like we don't get to everything that I want to ask because it goes so fast and there's so much to talk about. But we got to get to lightning round questions because I got to see what you think. So, all right, food cost or labor, what keeps operators up more often?
Food costs.
Yeah. Food costs is really hard to control. I think you can control labor much easier than you can control food costs because you really rely on the purveyor. And I think sometimes they hold you prisoner, especially with, when you're buying fresh vegetables and fresh fruits and you deal with market and weather and some things you just don't know. You can't forecast and predict. It's crazy, right?
Exactly. Like today, for example, it's pouring with rain here in New York and the weather is terrible. So it's a Monday, bad day for business owners, right? Restaurants. But you can never predict the weather, right? This past weekend, July 4th fell on a Saturday. That's bad for restaurants.
Horrible. Horrible. We close on July 4th in our fast casual. We're like, oh
Yeah.
no, it's a Saturday of all days. Couldn't it be a Monday?
Right.
Like, can't we play with the calendar? Let's make it Monday.
But, some restaurant owners don't even think that far in advance to be looking at something like that to say, oh, maybe we should close. I did see a lot of restaurants were closed this weekend. Some of them took vacations, right? Because they knew it was going to be a slow weekend. And it's very true. But I also went to a couple of restaurants that were crowded. So it's very hard, right? To make those decisions. But I completely get that. Just July 4th on a Saturday, tough, very tough.
I know. So, what's the best lesson you learned from working in the kitchen?
Treating your team with respect. I really think that getting your employees to be on the same page with you, understanding what they need to do, and really supporting you as long as you're supporting them goes so far in the restaurant industry. Um, you have some restaurants that people have been there forever, for years and years and years. And then you have others where turnover is constant. And turnover is going to cost you a lot of money because you have to keep
But yeah.
retraining people.
But yeah. What do they say? Training's the most expensive cost in any restaurant. The more you spend in training, is just if you can't control closing that back door. So you bring them in the front, you train them, you hire them, they go out the back door. It's like this big circle. So, training is definitely very costly.
It is, and it's important. But being a good leader, right? It's so important. People want to see you helping, stepping in if something needs to get done, not screaming all the time if there's a problem, right? How to manage the kitchen, manage the front of house, all of those places. And it's reflected, right, with your customers. They see it. They see it if you have a happy team. And that makes them want to come in more, right? Because then they know that they'll get good service and people that are happy to be there and are smiling and are great at service. And all of that plays a role in getting you repeat customers.
Yeah. Well, you're never going to believe it, but we are coming to the end. Our 40 minutes is up. And for everybody listening, you know where to find me, restaurantdiva.com. You can go to LinkedIn, Instagram. You can DM me anytime. And for everybody listening, where can they find you if they have questions or they want to find out more about your services? What's the best way to reach you?
We are on Instagram. It's Anne.Napolitano, my name exactly spelled out. We also, our website is napolitanoaccounting.com. So you can always reach out there, and there's a form on there that you can fill out if you're interested in speaking with me, and I can answer questions for you and explain the process. There's no obligation to any of that. So, and I'm on LinkedIn as well, Anne Napolitano Consulting, and also personally. So you can look me up there and reach out to me. We're very active on social media. We hang out on Instagram a lot because that's where our restaurants are.
That is true. Restaurants are definitely on social media. And what's one piece of advice you want to leave everybody with today from today's show? If everybody can take one lesson away, what would that be?
Pay attention to that cash flow statement. Really understand what's going in and out of your bank account every single week. And then that tip that I gave before about sales tax, open up that second bank
I
account.
love that. I think we're going to do it. I think that's a great idea because, sales tax definitely on the 15th, you file on the 15th, they take it out on the 20th. And, the beginning of the month, you might have, oh, here's an extra 5,000, here's an extra 6,000. I love that every Monday you put a little bit in. So this way you're not caught off guard and it's just sitting there.
It
Great
makes a big
suggestion.
difference. We've had so many clients run into trouble with not being able to pay their sales tax. And you don't want to be in that position. You don't want to get on the side of the states, right, where they're looking at you any closer than necessary. You really don't want that. So we started uh, as soon as a new client comes on board, that's one of the first things we recommend to them is open up that
Yeah,
second
I
bank
love
account.
that. It's a great tip. See, I learned something too.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm glad
Well,
I could
Anne,
help.
thank you so much for being on the show. This has been such a pleasure. And I hope we can work together on some other stuff in the future. That would be super cool.
I would love to. It's been such a great pleasure talking to you. So much fun. If I can come back, I would love to if you'll
I
have
would
me.
love to have you back.
So
There's always stuff we could talk about when it comes to food, recipes, the kitchen, accounting, numbers. I mean, I could put a whole list together and do a whole nother hour show.
I could absolutely, we could talk food. I love talking food anytime. And I'm already thinking about what I'm going to make for dinner tonight. So that's usually the first thing that pops into my mind every morning. So it's what am I eating for the rest of the day? Every meal is an opportunity for something spectacular. And that's the way I look at it. But I'm not a food snob. So I'll eat anything pretty much, but it's got to be good, right?
Yeah. Well, Anne, thank you again. And as you heard, I say this every week, great restaurants are built on so many different things. It's not just great food anymore. It's about experience. It's about leadership. It's about training. It's about operations and reporting and financial clarity and cash flow. There's so many things that go into running a restaurant. It's, back in the day, it was just open the door, sell some pizza, have a cash register, ring it up, put the cash in the register. It's not like that anymore. The restaurant industry is truly a big business and you have to have the right partners. You have to know your numbers. You have to be profitable if you want to survive and be successful. So you heard it from Anne, you heard it from me, and that's another episode of Dine and Dish. Thank you, Anne. Have a great week and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.